Come on. We gotta get out of here. Now, right now. Go. Let's go. Hey. Start the engine.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of EcoSwap. I'll cut right to the chase. Today, we will be putting the largest land carnivore ever to live on Earth, Tyrannosaurus Rex, into the world of Skyrim, one of the most ambitious and well-loved fantasy games of all time. We'll be going through our 4 major categories: pros and cons, environmental compatibility, calorie acquisition, and interspecific conflict, to determine if the Tyrannosaurus can make it in the coldest part of Tamriel. First, we'll go over the Tyrant Lizard King itself. Standing at 12 to 16 feet, or 3 to 4.5 meters tall at the hip, measuring 40 feet, or 12 meters in length, and weighing in anywhere from 7 to 11.5 tons, it has recently surpassed all other competition. Spinosaurus peaked at 9 tons, and Giganotosaurus at barely 10, giving Rexy her title back as the heavyweight champ. On that note, I should clarify that while there will be many Jurassic Park jokes and references in this video, we're using the real-world Tyrannosaurus Rex in this episode. T-Rex lived in the Maastrichtian stage of the late Cretaceous, 70 to 66 million years ago. Its range included most of the American Midwest, at least the parts that weren't underwater in the local seaway. T-Rex liked coastal floodplains and open fern savannas, and was the most common large carnivore in its biome. In fact, it's the only large carnivore in its home larger than a ton. The climate was balmy and hot, with Montana being equivalent to the modern-day Serengeti. Temperatures were 5 to 10 degrees Celsius warmer than today, averaging at 30 to 35 degrees Celsius or 85 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. In winter, temperatures would drop to 3 degrees Celsius or 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Due to this climate, adult Rexes probably didn't have a full covering of feathers. Being so huge in a hot savanna means you retain heat constantly, a process called gigantothermy. Look at modern-day elephants, especially the African bush elephant. Despite many extinct relatives being hairy, it's got only a few sparse hairs across its body. If adult T-Rex had feathers, they would be in a similar state. Infants, on the other hand, probably hatched with a fluffy coating. Even on Hell Creek savannas, nights got cold for a 5-pound tyrant. Now let's go over the T-Rex's senses. Tyrannosaurus Rex had one of the strongest senses of smell in the entire animal kingdom, surpassing that of modern-day sharks, dogs, and bears. This means T-Rex could smell prey well over 5 miles away. Its vision was spectacular, comparable to modern-day birds of prey like hawks and falcons. Hawks today have the visual acuity to see in the double digits of miles. Combine that with sharp binocular vision thanks to their eyes facing forward, and there was no escaping a T-Rex that wanted to track you. A lesser-known sense they had was their infrasound detection. The structure of their inner ear and large fatty pads in their feet would allow T-Rex to detect infrasounds emitted from the footsteps of other large animals. Modern-day elephants and crocodilians utilize the same abilities to communicate over dozens of miles with members of their social group. To make this ability even more impressive, Tyrannosaurus Rex may have been able to utilize this infrasound to mask their footsteps, making them deceptively stealthy. By emitting background frequency noises while they walked, they could hide their own vibrations. While we're on the topic of social groups, this is a good time to talk about whether or not T-Rex was a social animal or not. We know from fossil trackways that T-Rex's close relatives, Albertosaurus, Teratophenus, and Daspletosaurus, traveled in groups with each other. Sue herself was discovered with 3 younger Rexes alongside her, 2 juveniles and a subadult. We don't know how related they were, or if one group had killed the other, but there is definitely interaction going on here. We also know of several T-Rex specimens, including Stan and Sue, who managed to recover from egregious injuries. That in of itself isn't evidence of social behavior, but given Stan had broken vertebrae, ribs, and even damage to his brain case from another Rex bite, and lived, is either a testament to their durability or evidence of social grouping and family members feeding each other when they were injured. We don't know if T-Rex devoted extensive time to parental care, but given that we have evidence of this in other theropods, and modern-day birds and crocodilians are highly devoted parents, we can assume T-Rex at least spent some amount of time in childcare. Finally, we move on to T-Rex's physical characteristics. Studies on its neck and jaw muscles showcase it was capable of lifting over 1,500 pounds in its jaws, and that's a deadlift from the ground. Now, bite force is widely debated, with lowball estimates identical to that of large modern crocodiles, at around 3 to 4,000 psi. Higher-end estimates reach absurd numbers of over 30,000 psi. A more even average around 7 to 12,000 psi is more realistic, but it's still comparable to a hydraulic press. This would allow T-Rex to crush through even bone with relative ease, making it exceptional at getting every scrap of nutrient from a carcass. In terms of speed, T-Rex and its kin were pursuit predators. Rather than just rushing down prey, they would power walk towards their targets, forcing them to flee or fight. If the prey chose flight, T-Rex would use its incredible vision, smell, and hearing to track it down, jogging all the way. Eventually, the prey animal would collapse in exhaustion. Because of this strategy, adult T-Rex didn't need to reach high speeds to catch their food. Their top speed was around 16 to 18 miles an hour, or 25 to 28 kilometers per hour. Juveniles, on the other hand, had a more sleeker build, and could have reached much higher speeds, 20 to 25 miles an hour, or 32 to 40 kilometers per hour. Its preferred prey were things in the multi-ton range. Things like Edmontosaurus, Triceratops, and Torosaurus were probably its top 3 choices, but it wouldn't pass up other large animals like Ankylosaurus if the opportunity presented itself. Most of its prey involved a violent takedown, especially the ceratopsians. Though I do want to make a point, hadrosaurs aren't pushovers either, and large Edmontosaurus could absolutely turn the tables. On the smaller end, it would have used its amazing stamina to catch the smaller animals of Hell Creek, like ornithomimids, thescelosaurs, and smaller ceratopsians like Leptoceratops. But like all predators, T-Rex would have targeted the weak, injured, young, sick, and old before considering any healthy animals. In terms of weaknesses, there aren't many. Sure, T-Rex's arms aren't anything to write home about, but each arm can bench over 200 pounds, and it's not like you need a lot of upper body strength when your jaws can crush a car. It's also possible that the many other large dinosaurs of its home had access to infrasound, meaning it wasn't as broken a superpower as it sounds like.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
T-Rex took a long time to reach adulthood. Only after 13 to 15 years did a Rex start to morph into its adult stage. Before that, they are slimmer, sleeker predators, reaching about half their adult length and a fraction of the weight. And only after 18 years do they break the 3-ton barrier and start to really put on the pounds. This means the majority of T-Rexes in an environment are on the smaller side. At this stage, they're much more vulnerable to predation and environmental conditions. And finally, its metabolism is a problem. T-Rex needed a lot of food to keep such a body going. If removed from its home turf, there better be a lot of big prey animals around to satiate them. Conservative estimates based on modern-day Komodo dragons suggest T-Rex needed a daily caloric intake of 40,000 calories. This is probably a low end, since we know most dinosaurs had more mammal-like metabolism. A T-Rex would need to eat a human being every 2 days, or 1 goat per day, to keep itself fed.
Where's the goat?
Also, like most predators, T-Rex probably went several days between meals. Not every hunt is successful. They would probably make about 1 big kill every few days and feast on it in the meantime. And that's per animal. If raising young, or living in a group, Tyrannosaurus would need far more food. And with our overview of the Tyrant Lizard King done, let's move on to our setting. So, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I'm not really much of a Skyrim player. I've played it once, and it was only for about an hour. Luckily, I happen to be married to my own personal Dovahkiin. Hey babe, can you help me out with something for a video? Skyrim is one of the northernmost regions in the continent of Tamriel. The entire region sits on a higher altitude than most of the continent, contributing to its colder climate. It's most comparable to Northern Europe or Canada of our world. I can't find any official temperatures for Skyrim, but its flora and geography hint at a subarctic climate. Various parts are akin to tundra and steppes, kind of like Mongolia's cold deserts. The lower regions of Skyrim have a more temperate forest design, so they're probably warmer, more like central Canada. Summer temperatures in the warmer regions would easily get up to 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius, while in the colder regions, summers would probably peak at 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. In winter, temperatures would drop to 13 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 10 degrees Celsius to as low as negative 32 degrees Celsius or negative 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Extremes could go as high as 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius and as low as negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 51 degrees Celsius. This is based on the cities Saskatoon, Edmonton, and Cambridge Bay, and heavily based on a Reddit post by the user Grand Exploit. Thank you so much. There is very little info about Skyrim's actual temperature, so this hope was super helpful. Link in the description. Shockingly, that range of temperatures isn't a deal breaker for T-Rex. While it's certainly colder than it's used to, their huge size would be a great defense against hypothermia. If they were indeed social, cuddling would actually be a very effective counter to this. No, seriously, this is a legitimate strategy. Look at sea lions and other large animals that live in cold areas and have very little body hair. They huddle and cuddle for warmth. The big issue here is for the young. Hatchlings would die quickly, and even juveniles would find the climate dangerously cold. Social behaviors, gathering in warmer spots for the winter, and adults breeding in winter to lay the eggs in spring would help, but it's still a great deal colder than they're used to. This environment would favor young T-Rex that had heavier feather coatings, and those that retained those coats later in life. Given enough time, Skyrim will select for fluffy T-Rex. A bigger problem for this is the terrain. T-Rex was used to a mostly flat habitat, and its huge size meant navigating rocky terrains and mountains would be difficult at best. They would likely stick to the plains and tundras at the lower latitudes. The forests of Skyrim are thicker than T-Rex is used to, though not true closed forests. Closed forests are so densely packed that sunlight struggles to filter to the forest floor. Maneuvering in the thickest parts of Skyrim's forests would be impossible for adults and difficult for youngsters, though these thickets are rare. The more open forests around Riften would be fine, just not ideal. All in all, the environment is a challenge for T-Rex, but not an insurmountable one. Colder, more mountainous, and with denser forests, hunting and raising young will be harder for our Tyrannosaur population, and the former of two is our next discussion point. As previously mentioned, T-Rex's preferred prey is multi-ton animals. Skyrim only has one, the mammoth. These mammoths are roughly the size of the real-world Columbian mammoth, standing about 12 feet, or 4 meters at the shoulder, and weighing 8 to 12 tons, with record bulls probably pushing close to 15. They come in two varieties, wild and domestic. The domestic variety vastly outnumbers the wild type, which lines up with what happens in our own world. There are millions of domestic camels around the world, but less than a few thousand in their natural range. These domestic mammoths are guarded by Skyrim's giants, 3-meter-tall humanoids with a pastoral lifestyle. While normally peaceful, they react with violent intent towards anything that threatens their livestock. If you've seen my previous video, you'll remember that elephants, and by that extension mammoths, breed incredibly slowly. Often their gestation is over 2 years, weaning another 3, and then 10 to 15 years to sexual maturity. By contrast, dinosaurs could lay 10 to 50 eggs every year, possibly multiple times a year when food is good. Large mammals being hunted by predatory theropods need a large population not to be wiped out, and even then the population of theropods will eventually grow faster than their food. Sure, intelligence and herd defense tactics will help, but with only mammoths on the menu, for T-Rex, their wild population is going to fall very fast. Juvenile rexes could hunt the deer, elk, and caribou in Skyrim's plains and tundra, with staggering efficiency. Adults could attempt to pursue prey these animals, but they would need to hunt significantly more of them to compensate for the smaller amount of calories. These cervid populations might not be able to keep up with such a high level of predation. Not to mention that the deer can flee into the hills and mountains, where adult T-Rex will struggle to follow, and even the juveniles aren't exactly going to be proficient at it. Trolls are large bipedal primates native to both the lowlands and highlands of Skyrim, and are on the menu for any T-Rex heavier than they are. However, like mammoths, large primates breed very slowly. T-Rex would quickly devastate their population in the lowlands, with the mountain-dwelling frost trolls faring better due to the T-Rex's inability to climb steep terrains. And to anyone assuming the trolls could fight them off like King Kong, think again. Barely above 2 meters in height, trolls lack the size to fight off even the native predators of Skyrim. And apes are poor fighters, often losing to predators half their size. Leopards in Africa are known to bring down gorillas twice their size, and trolls stand no chance against predators multiple times their own weight. Porkers are large, walrus-like animals native to the coasts of Skyrim. Much smaller than the walruses of our world, they're more on par with large sea lions, though notable individuals have reached actual walrus sizes. A T-Rex would love the fatty meal they would provide, but porkers don't get far from the coast or riverbanks. Adult tyrannosaurs would struggle to ambush them in the open terrain, and due to their low overall speed, porkers could probably retreat to the water before the adults can close the distance. Remember, any ambush would require the Rex to stay out of sight, and given the flat, treeless terrain porkers are found on, this is unlikely. Juvenile Rexes could stalk them, but porkers will defend each other, and their large tusks can be dangerous weapons. It may be that they are too dangerous for the young, inexperienced Rexes to live off of. Mud crabs are a great source of protein, and are easy to catch and kill, but their relatively small size means they won't sustain their adults. Same goes for skeevers. Frostbite spiders are a good-sized meal, but they are very rare in the overworld of Skyrim. The bulk of their population lives in vast underground caves, so they're essentially inaccessible. Normally, humans in the races of Skyrim would be too small to be on the menu, at least for adult Rexes. But given the lack of available prey, Tyrannosaurs may change their mind. Cities are well protected, but smaller villages, small caravans, or groups on foot, bandits, groggers, hagravens, and vampire packs are all fair game.
Do come back.
Then you will be prey, like all mortals. I will spare...
He needs to die. He deserves to die.
I used to be an adventurer like you, and I took an arrow in
Do you get to the Cloud District very...
However, all of those save the Draugr are sentient beings, capable of using weapons, coordinating attacks and defense, and even using magic. We'll cover this more in the competition section. Spriggans, Earth Mother Spriggans, Frost Wraiths, Briarhearts, Ghosts, and Wisp Mothers are all inedible to corporeal carnivores, which leaves the only remaining food source in Skyrim, livestock. Domestic animals humans and other humanoids raise, like horses, cattle, pigs, goats, and sheep, are all decently sized, and with the added benefit of being locked in pens so they can't escape. But that will bring T-Rex into direct confrontation with the many races of Skyrim. Food is already hard to come by in this land, even more so when you're an 8-ton theropod relying on your body heat to fight the frigid winters, and it only gets harder from here. Skyrim has a wide variety of predatory mammals, including wolves, saber-toothed cats, bears, foxes, and a large predatory rodent called the skeever. All of these animals are on the menu for T-Rex, and generally, only the saber-tooth or bears will be a threat to young, but even then the young are far faster and have greater stamina. The largest bears or saber-toothed cats only reach 500 to 1,000 pounds, or 200 to 450 kilograms. With the boring predators out of the way, let's address the matchup you've all been waiting for, the dragons. Standing at 3 to 4 meters tall at the height of their back, with a wingspan just under 10 meters on average, Skyrim's dragons are too big to fly under the rules of our universe, but fly they do in Tamriel. There are no official weights listed for these dragons. I did find an article that lists their weight at about 500 kilograms or 1,100 pounds. However, my wife had a better idea of how to calculate their mass. In Skyrim, when you kill a dragon, you can get up to 3 dragon bones and 3 dragon scales. These items weigh 15 units in-game. Now, we don't know what these units are, but other things in Skyrim also have weights we can use to scale the true weight of these body pieces. Gold weighs 1 unit per ingot. In our world, 1 gold ingot weighs 27 pounds. The total of all of our dragon parts from a kill equals 75 in-game units. Multiplying that by 27 gives us 2,025 pounds, or 920 kilograms. I'm going to use that as the absolute minimum weight of Skyrim's dragons. My personal guess is that they should actually weigh in at 3 to 4 tons, but I don't have the resources to calculate their weight based on a silhouette, and we don't know if they were lighter or denser than life on Earth, so I think this should work out. At this weight, they're about half to a quarter the mass of an adult T-Rex. Dragons in this world are arrogant, prideful, and believe they are immortal. They exist to conquer those seen as beneath them, which includes every living thing in Skyrim. Upon flying over a T-Rex, I have no doubt they would immediately try to throw hands. Now, user experiences vary, but Skyrim's dragons prefer to hover and blast their target with a breath attack once or twice, before landing to engage in direct combat. Once they land, however, they will quickly learn this is like nothing they've ever fought before.
ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。近づかなきゃ、てめえをぶちのめせないんだな。
For the record, dragons in this world can be killed, not only by the player, but by giants, mammoths, trolls, and even city guards can pull off a win. They are not invincible, and conventional methods can kill them. I want to make this next part very clear. If the dragon's head or neck ends up in the Rex's jaws, it is game over for them. The Rex will pull off a mortal combat fatality and rip the dragon's head off. Even if the bite lands on a wing, leg, tail, or torso, it's going to instantly disable the dragon, preventing it from ever flying again. On the flip side, the dragon could easily win if it just stays in the air, breathing fire down on the Tyrannosaur until it died. Ultimately, the outcome of this fight doesn't matter. Even if T-Rex brings down the dragon, they will sustain serious injuries in the process. Every time this fight occurs, the Rex population gets weaker, and the dragons, until the Dragonborn defeats Alduin, will keep coming. If Skyrim's dragons acted like real animals, the two predators would leave each other alone to avoid any risks. But these dragons are out for blood. They will attack the Rex on sight, and the few adult Rexes that survive such an encounter are now wounded and will have a much harder time finding prey. Young Tyrannosaurs would be picked off easily by dragons, as their usual defense against predators, being their high stamina, is useless against an opponent who can fly. If, and that's a big if, Tyrannosaurus Rex did live in groups, or even pairs, this whole thing flips on its head. Dragons are almost always solitary, so being attacked from multiple 9-ton dinosaurs would be a death sentence. But since this is still debated, we can't be for sure. Far bigger a threat are the many races of Tamriel. Nords, Redguards, Imperials, Orcs, Dark Elves, High Elves, Wood Elves, Argonians, and the Khajiit. I'm not counting the Bredens. I'll be referring to all of these under the umbrella term of humanoids, as how they respond to a population of T-Rex is largely the same. As the Tyrannosaurs begin to starve after depleting the land of wild mammoths and trolls, they will turn to the livestock. And humanoids historically respond very poorly to this. In our timeline, humans nearly wiped out wolves, tigers, lions, and just about any other large predator, regardless of how heavily they preyed on livestock. Hell, the thylacine of Australia never even touched a sheep, but they're extinct today just the same. Don't think that due to their size, T-Rex is exempt from this. Even if the humanoids only had bows and horses, they could still kill any Tyrannosaur with mild to moderate difficulty. And the humanoids of Skyrim have actual magic. They can throw fireballs, shoot lightning from their hands, freeze objects by pointing at them, or reanimate skeletons to fight on their behalf. Sure, the average villager is screwed, but cities and even towns can hire mercenaries or soldiers to kill Rexes that become a problem, or hunt them down in the wild. Any nests they find will be destroyed, and it's not like a 4-meter theropod can find a lot of places to hide, especially since the mountains and the thickest forests are essentially invisible walls for them. In a direct confrontation, a couple of humanoids armed with metal weapons, bows, and magic will kill a T-Rex. T-Rex was an animal, not an indestructible movie monster. This common threat may even make some humanoids work together where they otherwise would be enemies. The Nords and Imperials would probably put aside their differences to defend their towns and food sources, and this camaraderie could delay their civil war. Even giants, normally extreme isolationists, may take up arms with other humanoids to defend their mammoths. On the flip side, some of these humanoids will suffer more. The Khajiit, Argonians, and Dark Elves are all heavily prejudiced against by the native Nords, and are often forced to live on the outskirts of towns in poorly put together shanty towns. Depending on the timeline, the appearance of the Tyrannosaurs may actually cause the Khajiit traders to simply turn back around and go back to their home of elsewhere. With the Civil War on standby and less people being willing to trade, there's not as much incentive for them to come to Skyrim. For any apex predator, once the tool-using Sophonts start targeting you, you're in trouble. Even more so if your only sustainable food source is their livestock. Ultimately, I have come to the conclusion that T-Rex cannot survive in Skyrim. The severe lack of food makes their survival impossible. Our breeding population descends upon and devastates the wild megafauna, and when they run out, they turn to animals guarded by very vengeful peoples. Add on the dragons weakening any T-Rex they come across, and the cold temperatures making reproduction more difficult, and the T-Rexes disappear in 2 to 3 generations. This goes to show that being a giant apex predator does not make you unstoppable. Large animals need a lot of food, and without large prey animals, survival can be impossible. If Skyrim had a bunch of giant herbivorous mammals or dinosaurs, the scenario would have ended very differently, but sadly that's not the case. I know this is where we'd normally do the speculative evolution section, but I'm afraid we can't justify it when the T-Rex can't survive here long term. Thanks for watching, folks, and see you next time on EcoSwap. Is what a loser would say! Gonna scam you like that? No, we're doing some spec evo no matter what. But what we need is a T-Rex that's smaller, better adapted to the cold, and can hunt fast-running animals more easily. What we need is...
I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be strong and he's gotta be fast and he's gotta be fresh from the fight. I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the morning light. He's gotta be sure and he's gotta be soon and he's gotta be larger than life. Larger than life.
Nanooksaurus hodlundi is a small tyrannosaur from what is now the North Slope of Alaska. Its size is somewhat debated, but its lower estimates put it at 16 feet, or 5 meters long, and about 1,000 pounds, or 450 kilograms. At the upper end, it's 30 feet long, or 10 meters, and weighs in at 3 tons. We'll be using a more middle-of-the-road estimate of 20 to 23 feet, about 7 meters, and 1 ton in weight. Nanooksaurus lived near the end of the late Cretaceous, 70 to 68 million years ago. Even given the Cretaceous hotter climate, its home in Alaska never got over 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or 15 degrees Celsius. In the dead of winter, temperatures could drop to -1 degrees Fahrenheit, or 30 degrees Celsius. On top of that, winter would have had 120 continuous days of 0 to low light conditions. Since many of the fossils from this region were of young dinosaurs, we know that most of them, Nanooksaurus included, spent the whole year this far north, neglecting the option to migrate. Most of what I've said so far about T-Rex is also valid for Nanooksaurus. Its sense of smell, vision, and hearing were incredible. It may have been social, may have been able to utilize infrasound. It was a warm-blooded animal with a high metabolism, a high bite force for its size, and it was a pursuit predator capable of chasing down prey over long distances. What set it apart from T-Rex was its fluffy coat of feathers to insulate from the cold. They retained this coat year-round, though it may have changed colors like the modern-day Arctic fox. Skyrim is a bit colder than this Tyrannosaur is used to, but not enough to prevent it from thriving here. The various wild deer species make for perfect prey, and unlike their larger cousins, Nanooksaurus can chase them up steep slopes or into thick brush. Yes, livestock and baby mammoths will be tempting targets, but Nanooksaurus has other options, and those that earn the peoples of Skyrim's ire will soon live to regret it. Large bears and saber cats are a noticeably larger threat for the smaller Tyrannosaur. While it's bigger than them as an adult, and in direct confrontation it would win, that doesn't mean it wants to deal with these large, aggressive mammals on a regular basis. They may start to target bears and cats though, as both predators will target younger Nanooksaurus to eliminate competition. However, when it comes to hunting prey, Nanooksaurus has little to worry about. It can easily steal kills from either predator, and its far better stamina allows it to be the more successful predator. Wolves are major competition for food though, having similar stamina and speed and preferring the same game. At least, that would be the case if they lived in larger packs. In Skyrim, wolf packs tend to number 2 to 3, far lower than the 7 to 12 of grey wolves in our world. Their group size here is comparable to Arctic wolves, who live in smaller numbers due to having less food available. 2 to 3 wolves are no match for a single Nanooksaurus, and the Tyrannosaur can easily chase them off kills, or even add them to its menu. Remember, it can pursuit prey them as well. And once again, we come to the dragons. Even a fully grown Nanooksaurus is a full-course meal for a dragon. With such a smaller adult size, they don't stand a chance. Now, a theoretical pack of Nanooksaurus could bring a dragon down, but there's no direct evidence of pack hunting in Tyrannosaurs, and even social behavior isn't widely agreed upon. Nanooksaurus survives Skyrim with flying colors. The climate is agreeable, there's enough prey to live off of without being systematically wiped out by the humanoids, and while dragons are a threat, they are few in numbers, and the smaller size and better camouflage of Nanooksaurus means it can avoid them, at least most of the time. Their high reproductive rate, and having better advantages at breeding in such a cold climate, will help them recover from dragon attacks, and the lack of other serious competition means the remaining tyrants can make a living. So now, we can move on to the speculative evolution portion. A quick disclaimer here. Nanooksaurus might not be a valid genus, not because the remains were falsified or anything like that, because it might actually belong to an already established species of Tyrannosaur called Asia tyrannus. Even if that is the case, the remains accredited to Nanooksaurus are still found in Alaska, still in subarctic temperatures. So the animal we're describing is real, it's just a matter of what its name is. If it turns out Nanooksaurus is not a valid genus, just replace every time I say Nanooksaurus with Asia tyrannus, and we're good to go! Nanooksaurus familiaris. Wild Nanooksaurus will occasionally target mammoth calves, making them a great annoyance to the giants of Skyrim. Giants have to be far more vigilant in the springtime when calves are in higher numbers and most vulnerable. During this time, some giants would find Nanooksaurus feeding on their scraps and garbage at the edge of their camps. Seeing this as a better alternative to dead calves, they encourage the behavior, as a fed Nanooksaurus wouldn't need to hunt. Even other humanoids are tolerated by giants in this way, so it's likely a small Tyrannosaur would be no different. Over time, the Nanooksaurus that grew less fearful and more tolerant of giants, and vice versa, saw greater success than their wild cousins. In a parallel to wolves in our timeline, this kickstarts a domestication process that leads to a beautiful partnership. Nanooksaurus familiaris is a giant's best friend and loyal mammoth herder. They help patrol the perimeter of giant camps and are quick to alarm their bigger friends to wild tyrannosaurs lurking nearby. In exchange, the giants feed and care for their companions. Even the mammoths enjoy interacting with these tyrannosaurs, both species forming friendships that start in infancy and last throughout their lives. Roughly the same size as their ancestors, but a bit lighter in weight, they can make for a very menacing guard dog. Their larger eyes and thicker feather coats are both traits of neoteny, a process where animals retain infant traits into adulthood, and is very common in domestic animals. Their blotchy cloak patterns are another side effect of domestication, and offer an easy visual distinction from their wild counterparts. Plus, it's just plain cute, and the giants breed these animals for cuteness as well. The giants are very protective of their tyrants, and guard their eggs and young from thieves with terrible violence. While many have tried, few in Skyrim have set their sights on an N. familiaris egg and lived to tell the tale. Even the companion raids on giant camps have become rare since this domestication event.
What you got there?
It's a smoothie.
However, there are rumors that the two biggest crime families in Skyrim, the Silverbloods and the Blackbriars, have Nanooksaurus from the giant's stock. Nothing says you own everything when even a 1-ton, 8-foot Tyrannosaur is under your command. While highly difficult for non-giants to raise, these animals aren't impossible, but their playful nature and strong jaws mean most who try often lose a limb, or worse. Dwemerosaurus troglodyte. Deep underground in Skyrim lies a vast cave system, connected to an absolutely massive chamber known as Blackreach. Built by the now extinct dwarves, or Dwemer as they were called, this chamber is half the size of the province known as Winterhold above ground. Down here lies an ecosystem of fungi and giant insects. At some point, a small group of Nanooksaurus stumbled into this underworld, and found themselves in a unique situation. While the many threats of the overworld were absent, food was more scarce here, and with only the giant insects called Chorus being abundant, and automatons patrolling the paths, it required adaptation. These bulky tyrannosaurs don't stand any taller than their ancestors, but weigh almost 3 tons. Life underground in confined spaces doesn't favor speed, but the ability to simply overpower prey quickly and efficiently, hence their sheer mass. Their eyes have been reduced, though aren't completely gone. Light from the bioluminescent mushrooms means sight is still useful, but far more important are his sense of smell and hearing. These animals are highly attuned to vibrations in the ground and track prey by their footsteps dozens of meters away. Their prey is primarily chaurus and frostbite spiders, the two giant arthropods of Skyrim. Over millions of years, this tyrannosaur's teeth have gone from serrated steak knives to blunt pegs, similar to the mosasaur globidens. The shape is far more effective in crushing and breaking chitinous exoskeletons of arachnids. Populations of Dromaeosaurus are always low, as while the caves are extensive, there's only so much space and food in such an enclosed area. Chaurus and frostbite spiders aren't exactly easy prey, and occasionally the tables turn and these invertebrates manage to dine on dinosaur. Furthermore, competition within the species is tough, and adult Dromaeosaurus are intolerant of adults of the same sex, often killing each other on sight, or rather on sound. While smaller dwarven automatons and blackreach are no real threat to an adult, the largest ones can easily kill an underground tyrannosaur. To hide from them, Dromaeosaurus has lichen and fungi growing on its feathery coat. This additional camouflage is their only defense, allowing them to curl up and lie still and hope the giant machines pass them by. Equiphagius cursori. A new terror has emerged on the open plains of Skyrim. It is no longer safe to travel from town to town on foot, and it's practically suicide to do so on horseback. Packs of lithe, fleet-footed tyrannosaurs are now a trader's worst nightmare. Equiphagius cursori is about half the size of its ancestors, with only the largest individuals breaking half a ton and standing at 6 feet or 2 meters tall. But they are still more than large enough to overpower the hoof mammals of Skyrim. Deer, elk, and caribou are the bulk of its diet, during the times the humanoids turn up the heat on their population. But when the threat dies back, even just a little, Equiphagius lives up to its name. They have a wicked taste for horseflesh, and this has become a problem for the races of Skyrim. Hunting in packs up to 5, cursori rely on tag team tactics. One will begin the chase, isolating either a deer or horse, and sprint at it in a burst of speed, while the others casual jog behind. As the first hunter tires, one of the cursori waiting in the winds puts on the gas and takes over, and the first hunter joins its packmates jogging behind. They will repeat this pattern until the prey collapses from exhaustion. The population of this tyrannosaur forms a wave, rising and dipping multiple times over the course of 5 to 6 years. It is directly tied to the pressure the humanoids of Skyrim place on them. When the population of cursori is at its peak, they hunt horses with wild abandon. This brings the hammer down on them, and the people hunt and kill them in large numbers. They do this until the population falls, and those Equiphagius that survive avoid horse meat for the time being. The hunts regress, and the population bounces back, continuing the cycle once more. But with all that being said, many peoples prefer these beasts to the hordes of Draugr, packs of vampire, and brazen bandits that patrolled the plains before. Thanks to Equiphagius, the Draugr are extinct, vampires have gone into hiding, the bandits only attack you if you get close to their base, and frostbite spiders rarely survive long above the surface.
Oh, I wouldn't say free. More like under new management.
It is this sentiment that the horse eaters haven't been eradicated. As dangerous as they are, they're less of a threat than the monsters they've wiped out. After all, Equiphagius is still an animal. Loud noises, bright lights, and displays of magic can spook them off, and some travelers have even begun to offer them meat as a distraction and payment for safe passages. Regardless of whether that's good or not, it at least is effective, while Draugr and vampires would have never taken the deal in the first place. Merityrannus dovahkiani. On the frigid coastlines of Skyrim lives the largest descendant of Nanoxaurus. Often found stalking horkers or fishing for mud crabs, this is Merityrannus dovahkiani. Standing over 10 feet, or 3.5 meters tall, up to 30 feet long, or 10 meters long, and weighing in at 4 to 5 tons, this semi-aquatic predator has been able to reach such a large size thanks to its seafood diet. Horkers make up to 70 to 80% of what it eats, with the rest being filled in by fish and mud crabs. This tyrannosaur can hunt horkers not in spite of its short legs, but in thanks to them. Only thanks to that low profile that they provide can Merityrannus get close enough for an ambush, crouching slowly until they can close the distance. After all, it only has to be faster than an animal that's basically a sausage with flippers. Should the Horker just barely make it into water, Merityrannus' paddle-like tail can give it a sudden burst of speed to catch its prey. Reminiscent of Spinosaurus' tail, it's long and heavily muscular to help push them through the water. Their arms have become much longer and stronger to help restrain large game and strike at fish. However, they still only have 2 fingers. Polydactyly has only ever evolved once in tetrapods, and that was in ichthyosaurs, which aren't even remotely closely related to tyrannosaurs. The teeth of these tyrants have also adapted, becoming conical and losing their serrations, common in fish-eating animals. These physical traits put together a tyrannosaur that convergently evolved a body plan similar to a spinosaurid. Their heads have even gotten smaller, to compensate for the larger arms. Males have a noticeable crest above their eyes the females lack, which is a display feature they use to impress potential mates. Males are also solitary, and patrol wide territories covering several tens of kilometers along the coast. Females find a territory near river mouths with a steady supply of fish and mud crabs. They nest along these riverbanks, hidden deep in reeds and other thick riverbank flora. Females will occasionally group up, sharing food sources and even watching each other's young while the other hunts. This is often sisters and cousins, as female Merityrannus rarely travel far from their home territory if food is still available. Unlike Equiphagius, Merityrannus has an almost venerable relationship with the peoples of Skyrim. They are often portrayed on family crests and plaques. In coastal fishing towns, where you would think such a large predator would be a nightmare, the people often treat such animals with respect and admiration, at least from a safe distance. A story is told on the outskirts of the city of Solitude, the capital of the province Halfinger. Ages ago, when dragons still flew over Skyrim, a group of fishermen's wives were at their wits' ends. Their boats have been harassed by a dragon for months, and the city's jarl wouldn't intervene. Many boats have disappeared, only to never return. But one of the fishermen's wives, a dark elf woman named Jannar, noticed the dragon was not only victimizing them. A mother Merityrannus nesting nearby had lost most of her clutch to the dragon's hunger, and only a single chick remained. So Jannar suggested a plan. The remaining fishermen would create a huge cache away from the city docks, a ruse as if they were trying to hide their catch, but poorly. The dragon would be enraged by such a poor sleight of hand, and would attack them on sight. Jannar said that if they could get hooks into the dragon's wings, hooks tied down to posts, it would be grounded and easier to kill. So the people did as she suggested. Lo and behold, the dragon did appear, roaring and blasting the land with fire. A fisherman threw their hook, and it snagged at the leathery wings of the beast. Encouraged, the others threw their hooks as well, but soon the dragon could no longer fly more than 3 meters off the ground. But it had cost them dearly. Already 4 of the fishermen had died to claws, teeth, and fire, including Jannar's own husband. Screaming in rage, she ran a spear through the beast's tail, earning a swipe from its wing in return. Hurled to the ground, she would only watch as the dragon approached, fire dripping from its fangs. And then the dragon jerked back, as if a great force had tugged on its tail. Both dragon and Jannar looked to see the Merityrannus digging its claws into the beast's back. The river tyrant was not helping the people out of seeing them as allies. It was still an animal, but it was just smart enough to want revenge. The dragon spun and snapped its jaws onto the tyrant's shoulder, eliciting a roar of pain. But the mother wasn't done yet. She released the tail and dug her fangs and claws into the dragon's neck. The 2 great reptiles shook the earth as they battled, and all those people who remained scurried to cover. The dragon was stronger, faster, and its fiery breath made it far more deadly. But tied down, the Merityrannus controlled the pace of the fight, and she wanted this killer dead. No threat to her chicks would exist here again. When the dust finally settled, the dragon's blood turned the earth red, and a panting, heavily wounded Merityrannus stood above it. She gave out no roar of victory, just a heavy huff of finality as her body shook from the injuries. Jannar got up, summoning the tiny bit of magic that coursed through her veins. She had performed this healing spell numerous times, from minor scrapes to even cut the blood from lost limbs. The Tyrannosaur growled at her approach, but it was too weak to strike back. The yellow glow from her hands reached the dinosaur, and its deep gashes filled in, its puncture wounds scabbed over. The Tyrannosaur took a deep breath, not fully healed, but no longer about to collapse. Jannar slowly backed away, hoping the beast would feel gratitude and forgive her for leading her into such a fight. The Tyrannosaur tilted its head, sore but fully capable of ripping the dark elf's head from her shoulder. But a whine in the distance caught her attention. Her remaining chick, bleeding for its mother out of hunger. Taking a final look at Jannar, the mother Merityrannus took a mouthful of fish from the pile and slowly jogged off in the direction of her chick. Many generations later, long after the dragons have disappeared, the people around what was once called Solitude maintain a tradition of leaving large piles of bycouch on the outermost docks, solely for Merityrannus to feed off of. Now many females gather here in the springtime, stocking up on easy food for hungry chicks. Inadvertently, this has made the city safer. Only large, older males can claim a territory with this many females. This keeps away the younger, more unpredictable and hormonal males that might attack boats or travelers. The locals know where the tyrants like to hunt, rest, and raise their young, and give the apex predators a wide berth. Foreign merchants occasionally don't heed the locals' warnings and learn the hard way that Merityrannus are tolerant of people, not the same as friendly. But to the people of Solitude, Merityrannus are a symbol of resilience and the last guardian left. Should the dragons ever return, the people of Skyrim have their own drakes to bring to the fight. Thank you for everyone who's watched to the end. I know this was a lot longer than my last video, but I wanted to make a point. Just because you're a giant apex predator doesn't mean you can survive in any environment. I also want to draw everyone's attention to the description, where not only do I have all the sources I used to make this video, but I also list all the artists whose work was used in this video. Please go check each and every one of them out. They're all amazingly talented people. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That is forever going to cause me pain to say. And I will see you guys next time.